In celebration of Black History Month, the Black Asian Minority Ethnic Staff Network Group within the Council are putting together a one-to-one conversation with people from Black Asian minority ethnic heritage who have grown up in, lived or worked in the Hertfordshire to talk about their experiences, careers and aspirations. Throughout these conversations, we want to focus on the positive things Black Asian minority ethnic individuals and the community has given Hertfordshire. And joining me in conversation today is Lionel Wallace, who is the Deputy Lieutenant of Hertfordshire. And if anyone is wondering what does that mean, it's time to meet Lionel to find out. So hello Lionel, thank you for agreeing to speak to us. We are thrilled to learn more, so let's begin. You are the Deputy Lieutenant of Hertfordshire. Can you tell me about your role and the work you do?
Thank you, Caroline. Nice to meet you too. In fact, I'm one of the Deputy Lieutenants of Hertfordshire, and effectively I'm one of the support Deputy Lieutenants for the Law Lieutenant of Hertfordshire, Robert Voss currently, who is Her Majesty's Personal Representative of Hertfordshire. So what I do is basically get involved in assisting Robert and the rest of the lieutenancy in activities around the county, which may involve anything from the Queen's Awards or honours that have been given to the county or to individuals, to representing community events, undertaking reviews of nominations if that's appropriate, sometimes meeting members of the royal family if they come to the county, and of course the lieutenancy are the principal interface between the Queen and the county, so hosting members of the royal family, general ceremonial duties, things like this basically.
How did you come to be in the role? Is there a particular route?
So there's not a particular route. You're invited to the position. It's not something that you can apply for. So it's an invitation normally by the Law Lieutenant, perhaps recommended by somebody that might be close to the Law Lieutenant, or recommendation. And then of course the Queen has to not disapprove effectively of the appointment. But other than that, it's really a pretty sort of flat system. But the Law Lieutenant is empowered per the legislation to appoint a certain amount of deputy lieutenants to represent the lieutenancy in the county. I think it's all comes down to the size of the county, the number of deputy lieutenants that there are.
Okay, so did you grow up in Hertfordshire? Can you tell me about you and your family and how the family came to be in Hertfordshire?
Absolutely. So I was born in Hertfordshire, nonetheless, rather than just essentially growing up. So Hertfordshire is really a place that's dear to my heart. I was born in St Albans. My family have been living in St Albans for a long time. So I went to school, primary school and secondary school in Hertfordshire, and I grew up there. Youth clubs, church, friends, everything. So I'm a Hertfordshire born and bred individual, really, and most of my family are as well. My parents come from the Caribbean islands of St Kitts and Nevis, and they came over like many people in the 50s, effectively from the Caribbean, to seek a different future for themselves and their family.
That sounds really intriguing. So who, when you were younger and perhaps even now, grown up, who and what are your earliest influences?
Earliest influences. So that's an interesting question. I think I've got many influences. I mean, we grew up as a family that, we're quite a large family. So I've got quite a few brothers and sisters. So they were probably some of my early year influences. And then I went to school here. I think that one of the things that I found very sort of early on was some of my teachers clearly at schools were great influences for me, even sort of very younger, outside of the family, and the family was quite a good influence, and the church I was going to, particularly when we were growing up, the youth group associated with that. And then I got involved in youth work, and I had some very good friends and influences in the youth work when I was growing up there. Some people Wendy Thomas, who's now passed away. Fortunately, she was a great friend and influencer in youth work. We worked together for many, many years in the youth club, in the Pioneer Youth Club in St Albans, for example. And I've had other influencers as well. A gentleman called Teddy Four Walker, great guy. Also, he's unfortunately passed on as well, but he was a great friend and influencer to some of the youth work I was doing in Hertfordshire. So I've had, I think, a number of different people in my years growing up that have impacted not necessarily so much the way I think, but what I've been able to contribute to in the county.
So in terms of young people, how can young people be more attracted to find jobs in Hertfordshire so we can retain that talent? So do you see it as a county of opportunity, and if so, why?
Yes, I mean, Hertfordshire's got a tremendous amount of technical companies that offer a tremendous amount of opportunities, I think. I mean, I found myself when I was growing up, we had the aviation company, Hawker Siddeley British Aerospace, that was based in Hatfield at the time. It was a shame to see that go, because of course when you have an industry as big as that, and the supply chain that's associated with it, that drives not only education, because of course the local education establishments, particularly the universities, want to prepare people for those sort of jobs, but it also builds the industry and in the supply chain, businesses, people supplying into that. I think things have changed over the years that I've been growing up working in Hertfordshire, but I think that there's a developing opportunity, particularly now we're talking about the situation now post COVID-19, of course, where there's a lot of work going on with people working from home and activities associated with that. And I think we'll see hopefully quite a few things also start up in this sort of new era. But if you look around the county, tremendous opportunities in some of the developing businesses in Stevenage and Hatfield's developing, and many different areas of the county in particular. I think one of the challenges, if I put it this way, that the young people will have, as you're probably aware, Caroline, is that Hertfordshire is quite an expensive place to live. It's a nice place, but it's quite an expensive place to live. So if you're a young person growing up here, I think particularly those that maybe want to start on the property ladder or move away from home, etc., it can be quite challenging to do that in Hertfordshire. And that's one of the things that I think that as a county, we need to keep a constant eye on, as to how our communities are affected by the necessity of young people having to move away, even if they would want to, for economical reasons. And that's one of the challenges. But I think that we've got the opportunity to be creative in what we do, and Hertfordshire people, I think, have, generally speaking, rise to that creativity. There's a tremendous amount of business, new businesses that are being formed from students out of the University of Hertfordshire, for example. Lots of things there. We get a lot of international students coming in, don't we, to Hertfordshire, and that brings with it, I think, another tremendous opportunity of international thinking and international opportunities as well for connections. So I think there's lots of opportunities, but there's also the challenges that go with them. So I'm not suggesting it's not something that also needs support for a lot of the young people that are coming out of the schools and wanting to know how they can actually go on the business ladder, employment, etc. And who knows exactly how we're going to deal completely with this situation of COVID. That will change, but I think together we can make it work.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think what we can do, the youth and the children are where we should put some real effort into, because that's the future of how we proceed and get along in this life. So absolutely agree with you there. In light of the events in Bristol and everywhere else this summer in the country, what are your views on how Black history should be told, and what does Black history mean to you? And especially this month, Black History Month, just your thoughts on those.
Interesting, yes. Black history. Yeah, so I think it's a subject that's really actually quite it's important. It's a very important question. So what does Black history mean to me? I think Black history is a massive thing. I mean, I wouldn't want to constrain Black history to just something that is about Black people. You know, I mean, Black people are part of the world where people of all nations sort of contribute. And I think depending on what aspect you want to look at things from, there's certainly an underestimation of the contribution I think that Black people have made to humanity, to technology, to community, whether that be in Hertfordshire or the rest of the world. And that's always a great thing to tell anyway, raising the profile of people who, you know, the unsung heroes, as we say, who do lots of great work. And there's a tremendous amount of them in the county, I can tell you, that do that. But I think that that one of the great things and opportunities that we have is to raise the fact that actually, you know, many people don't necessarily know or aware of how far back the contribution of Black people in the UK is. You know, many people talk about the Windrush, and there's lots of discussion going on currently about things associated with that. But you can go as far back as, you know, the Romans, etc., maybe before, and hear about Black people in the UK. So I think that there's a need for a real balance about sort of raising that knowledge, that profile about what Black people have contributed to Hertfordshire and to the country. But also I think it's important to recognise that you know, Black people don't live in a world on their own. So some of the great successes of many Black people have taken people that are not Black, people of non-Black heritage, to be part of that journey. And I also think that that's actually a really important part of Black history as well. You know, you might see people like you know, William Wilberforce and his work for the abolition of slavery. Well, of course, you know, he wasn't Black, but that's got to be part of Black history, isn't it? So I think it's really important to me that I think people think about how do you tell that balanced, you know, rich story about Black people, making sure that people aren't forgotten, that people who are who have done a tremendous amount of either work or they've been really pioneers in their work, that are people of colour, whether they've been in the UK or in other parts of the world, are given the platform that they deserve. And that's important as well. But I think it's also important to recognise that, you know, Black history, in my opinion, is really not something that you can constrain to 1 month. It's very nice to have the celebration, and it's glad that I'm really glad that it's good to see that you're doing this work. But I think, you know, Black history is a 12-month thing, isn't it? And I think that it's nice to have the platform to raise it now, but like many other people's history, it's something that's just needs to be valued anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lionel, absolutely. So you've talked about, you know, your day job, as it were, but outside of being Deputy Lieutenant, what activities, what do you get involved in? What sort of is your passion?
Well, actually, I haven't told you about my day job. In fact, being deputy lieutenant is actually one of my side jobs, and it's a voluntary and very delightful and very honouring role in Hertfordshire. But I'm actually an engineer. I'm an aeronautical engineer, and my day job runs from looking at aircraft design and proposing things that might enhance safety and doing certification. And I grew up in St Albans, watching aircraft from the Hatfield Aircraft Company sort of fly over the school playing fields, and got this passion for aviation, which I'm still in. And so I'm in aircraft design, and pretty much mostly have spent most of my year doing aircraft certification. So I look at aircraft designs and try and establish whether they comply with the airworthiness requirements, and I do lots of negotiations with different governments about how they accept the aircraft. And I really love that as a job that keeps my brain ticking as my day job. And then outside of that, I have a great passion for young people in particular. I spent quite a bit of my time in St Albans being a chairman of Hertfordshire youth clubs. Pioneer Youth Club, was chairman of Pioneer Youth Club for a number of years, and then chairman of the Hertfordshire Association for Young People. And I'm really keen and always very interested in seeing young people achieve their potential, I would say. You know, and I've come across a tremendous amount of young people in my time and my roles who, with the right motivation, with the right support, with people who actually, you know, have a real keen, I would say, interest in seeing them achieve, do tremendously well. And I think that that's one of the things that I find very rewarding, is to see people succeed, people who sometimes feel that they can't do it, actually be given a little bit of motivation and support and find that they absolutely can do it, and then see them do it. And there's nothing more rewarding than seeing that sort of development. So I've got a passion for young people, and I really enjoy being involved in that.
I had assumed that your job as the Deputy Lieutenant was part of your day role, so it's really interesting to hear that actually it's not something you take on as well as your role. So one of the questions I think is important to everybody, really, it's about anti-racist and the society we live in at the moment. And at the council, we are working really hard talking about being anti-racist and what that means. So is there anything you can recommend about how we can all work to create an anti-racist society? Some books or films or just some words of wisdom, really, in terms of...
That's interesting, actually. Anti-racist. So I guess that would mean that that would be people who are against racism as a foundation, wouldn't it be? And I think that there's probably a lot of us, not just people of colour, who I think would say that we don't want to see, we don't want to be, it doesn't really contribute to community, it doesn't really contribute to people's lives in a positive way, to be somebody who promotes sort of racism. I think that there are people, if you were to use the term anti-racism, I think there's people who probably find that term a little bit challenging, because it almost suggests that you've got to be positively on a bit of a campaign. And I think that there are people who would be uncomfortable with a campaigning against a racism that are actually not racist as well. So it's a really complex thing. I think that what we definitely need to do is the sort of things that I know that probably your organisation is doing, is sort of making people aware of the challenges that other people face when people either do or say different things. And I think it's an absolute, great objective for all of us to say, well, actually, whatever colour, whatever background you come from, you must be entitled to being treated with the sort of level of respect that doesn't recognise that difference as a determining factor for somebody else's decisions. Do you know what I mean? That's, for me, the really important thing that says, actually, I can meet somebody who's different to me, and maybe different in their background and their colour, which we might call race, and I'm not going to treat them any differently because of that. Actually, I just see through that and see them to who they are. I don't think we're there. Of course we're not there. And we're not there for lots of different reasons. I think we're not there because some people don't maybe recognise that there is a challenge and that there is a problem. And in some respects, when you look at the reaction of often sort of children who haven't been taught about this sort of racism thing, it's very nice to see that they'll be sometimes surprised when somebody points somebody out by remarking about their colour, which often isn't seen by children, you know, because they don't recognize it. They recognize, first of all, the relationship they have with these people. So a lot of it's about saying, okay, well, how can we make sure that that very, very lovely, genuine, non-racist education that children have can sort of go forward. And I think the starting place is for people to actually start talking about these things in a really respectful way, but not in a way that says, actually, I can't fight for this. Because I really believe, I have to be honest, I really believe that people don't have to fight for something that they are based on somebody else's lie, if I put it that way. Do you know what I mean? If you're entitled to be treated like everybody else, then if you make up in your mind, I think that's who you are, and you're confident about who you are, then you've got to keep in balance how you treat or react to what other people think, and you can begin to sort of feed or fuel a fire, you know, pouring petrol on a fire that doesn't need to be poured out. Do you know what I mean? I often say to people, you know, if I have a non-happy day, that's completely down to me. You know, my happiness is not dependent upon how people treat me. My happiness is dependent upon how I treat myself and how I think. And racism is a little bit like that, I think. Racism is a little bit that says, actually, I need to know who I am and how confident I think about myself. And then I've got to say, actually, what is the best way to get other people who think maybe in an inappropriate way, they think about people of color or people of race in a particular way, to think differently about those other people. And that's something you can do, I think, in my experience, best by almost kind of loving people into that direction rather than fighting people into that direction. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because the moment you start to fight people for something, then just like cats, they basically start to put up barriers and start to fight. And, you know, if everybody's fighting, then the whole thing just becomes a bit of a war. It's not easy. And I think that one of the hardest things about this subject is there's been a lot of pain over many years for many people. So a lot of people are hurt and they come from a position of hurt, and that's completely understandable. But I'm not sure hurt's the best place to come from in order to deal with something in a positive way. Anger is something different. I don't think there's any issue about being angry about something that's unjust or inequitable. But anger doesn't have to drive you to violence. But anger doesn't have to drive you to a way of thinking that causes actually you to become the same as the very people that you're trying to criticize in certain respects. So to answer your question, and I've gone about it maybe in a very long-winded way, anti-racism. I think that it's one of those things that really just deserves to be treated with a whole dose of love. And that might sound really strange, but it doesn't need to be something which is a campaign trying to beat people down. You know what I mean?
That was really great, Lionel. I'm really interested. Just thinking about going in tomorrow and telling everyone to have a loving at work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you would be amazed how much, and we can't do it right now, but how much a hug, how much a smile sorts certain things out. Do you know what I mean? You gotta go beyond some of the ways in which I think we've dealt with these very challenging subjects before. And I'm not trying to justify racism at all. And I'm not trying to say it needs a soft touch. I'm just saying that some of the tactics that sometimes people use to fight racism or to become anti-racist are in themselves self-defeating, is my experience, and it doesn't really work.
That's great, Lionel. Thank you so much. So unfortunately, we've run out of time. So I really do appreciate you being here with us and sharing a piece of your life. It's been fascinating. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.